All right. It says we are live. So let me just refresh my screen, see what's going on here. Let- All right. So look, now that I'm deaf, because apparently we are live. So hi. Hi, everybody. Um, we'll start this slowly because obviously I want to see people hop in and do all this great stuff and have some good discussion time tonight with everybody because that's important. I know that is, right? So hopefully everybody's doing well on this Saturday night. Hopefully everybody is having a wonderful weekend. There's four of you watching right now. So, again, just say hello. Don't be shy. And as we get through this, we'll talk a little bit more about. Oh, and by the way, can everybody hear me okay? Hopefully you can. But today we're going to talk a little bit about my interaction that I had with the Ulster County court system here. Again, I did not break any laws. I am not a criminal element, nor do I have any intentions of harming anybody. So I'd like to just say that right now, because, obviously, we don't want people to, judge us and everything. Why, hello, Mike. How are you, sir? Thank you, Pistol Pete, for letting me know I'm loud and clear. So tonight we're going to talk about that situation I went through. I actually have some audio recording. It's actually a video because I had to do this meeting virtually because initially they requested my amazing presence in person, and I said nope, can't do that because I have to do something called work, and I wasn't about to burn my own time to go and deal with this because, in my opinion, at that point it was ridiculous in the first place. So I said no, I'm not going to do that because to me it's kind of pointless to go in and try to justify what I already knew was coming, right? Because I made a phone call to the clerk because the letter I received was kind of stupid, wasn't very transparent in regards to what it was really asking. And to be honest with you, if I wasn't if I wasn't foolish, I would almost think that it was like a menacing type of letter. It was an intimidation factor involved in it because obviously in New York State, most people can understand that a lot of people aren't gun friendly here, right? And especially our politicians. So I think what really that means is that, when somebody asks you to appear at a court and there's really no reason why, like they're not giving you a reason, they're just saying we want you to appear on this day, then I think most people kind of, recoil at that idea because why am I going to court? What is the point of that? And so I don't know. I think that's a bit screwed up. I think that there's something to be said about that, and whether or not that's a governmental overreach or judicial overreach, whatever you want to call it. And as Pistol Pete is saying, unconstitutional as hell. And it really is interesting, right? Because obviously New York State has some of the worst gun laws in America, right? Very ungun friendly place. But more than interestingly or not, I found it amazing that a judge has the independent ability to call people in if they feel that this person owns too many firearms. And like what is that cutoff, right? Like is it 5? Is it 10? Is it 15, 20? And so we're gonna play the audio recording on my meeting that I had. I'm not gonna let you listen to all of it. And the reason why that's gonna happen is because there is some personal information in that conversation that I don't want people to know about me. And it's nothing personal, guys. I just would rather keep my privacy to myself and or as much as I can, right? So first off, I just want to say hello to everybody who's come into the chat. It looks like there's 13 people watching, so I appreciate it. Once we're kind of done with this first part of it, we will segue into the next part of it, which is actually talking about the Ruger RXM. Again, this gun has been out for a while. I'm sure you've seen all the YouTube personalities out there who have been marketing this for Ruger. I actually just got one and, I paid for it. And I have to say, I've been extremely impressed with this gun. There are some things about it that are kind of like, okay and whatever. It's a Glock clone. But at the same time, I think there is a lot to be said about this, especially with their fire control insert, their FCI as opposed to an FCU. And I think it's going to do really well. But we'll talk a little bit about that in the later part of this little chat here. All right, so let's see. Rick is saying, I thought it was bad enough living in Connecticut. I guess it also depends on where you're living in New York, right? This is not happening throughout the entire state. It just seems to be happening in Ulster County, New York. And as far as I know, this is happening to an awful lot of people. So it just didn't happen to me. This is happening to a lot of different people here. I think that there is absolutely the attempt to intimidate and to try to dictate to people what they can and cannot own. But it is ridiculous. And Pistol's asking, does New York have a handgun roster too? It does not. So we can buy anything we want. It's just a matter of having to kiss the behind of the court and everything. So that's kind of the downside of all this. And so, to me, that's where I think people get, I guess, a little bit dismayed and disrupted and disturbed that we are living in these times where, honest people who don't break the rules, people who pay their taxes and, don't commit crimes and have families are being questioned like we're criminals, while the criminals aren't even getting held accountable for their actions. So, I mean, it's kind of a bizarro world we're living in right now. But welcome to New York, right? All right, and guys, if you do have any questions, feel free to ask. I know there's a lot of channels out there will say throw a super chat and I'll prioritize you. I will do my best to prioritize everyone, but don't be shy to give a super chat if you want. But now let's start talking. So the first part of this, what you're going to hear, and I named this chat the very strange gun owner or something like that, or the highly strange gun owner. And there's a reason for that because there's a comment that's made. So RG237G is saying someone has it out for you and pass it on to some wannabe politician looking to use you for publicity. I don't think they're using me for publicity. I'm an unknown person. I mean, I have this channel, but this channel, I would not call myself a celebrity by any means. I just think it is random. I actually know a few people who have actually gone through the same situation, and it is based upon how many guns you're actually, putting or adding to your license here. So just to give a quick background on how New York State works, anytime you buy a handgun in New York State, you have to go in for a background check. You have to do all those things that are required by law. But you also have to go to your local sheriff's office. You have to submit paperwork showing that you're adding the gun to your license. And then depending on where you live in New York, because nothing in New York is consistent. It depends. You will get a little green coupon, and in that coupon, it'll tell you the model, the make, the serial number, and your name. And it'll have the judge's signature showing that they signed off saying that you're, blessed to own a firearm. In some counties, like for mine example, it used to be that way. You go in, you get your coupon, you go and get your gun. But unfortunately now it requires an actual signature. And as a result, you have a wait anywhere from 2 to 4 to 6 weeks. And it really depends on whoever the judge is that's, cycling in to sign all of these. And also how busy they've been in the court. So you're kind of at their will when you want to buy a handgun. Now, with that said, every time you are going into the gun shop and you're doing your background check and you're adding another gun to your license, there is a license card that comes with I should say it's a gun card that comes with your license. So every pistol you own is on that gun card. So in this case, when you have certain judges who are not necessarily gun friendly or even, I dare to say, gun savvy, they see somebody who has, let's say, 29, 30, 40, 50 handguns, and right away there's a flag that's thrown. Now, this isn't a red flag law situation. It is just an opinion of an individual who feels that if you own too many guns, then there's something wrong. And as a result, they invite you in to have that conversation. Like I said, this has happened to other people. I was kind of playing dumb initially because I wanted to pretend I had no idea what they were talking about when in fact I really did. And so as a result, I'm going to let you listen to some of this conversation and hopefully, and do me a favor, I'm going to play like about 3 seconds of it. And if you guys could do me a favor and just type in that you can hear the audio, that would be great. I have a little system here. And so let's see if it's actually working, which I don't know if it will. So here we go. Judge.
Very good. Thank you.
So can everybody hear that? I just want to make sure before I continue playing it. So if you guys don't mind, just type that comment saying yes, thumbs up, smiley face, whatever, don't care. As long as I know you guys can hear it, I will play it. All right, perfect. So Pistol Pete is our guy tonight who's saying he can hear it, which means all of you can. So like I said, I'm not going to play the whole video. I will say it lasted approximately 8 minutes. And in that conversation, I do give a little bit of detail in the conversation that I don't really want anybody to hear, career things, that type of stuff, because that's, no offense to anybody. Like I'm trying to do my best to keep my life private and what I do and what I've done in the past, because it's really nobody's business except for my own. And some of that is disclosed in this video. So that's why I'm not going to play the whole thing. But here we go. And I want you to listen carefully to the tone of the judge and the question that is asked initially. So here we go.
A practice of bringing in folks who are applying for an amendment to acquire another firearm if they have more than 25 weapons on their license. I just make it a point of checking in and see where you're at.
Okay, so let's talk about that first part. So first off, she's checking in, right? She makes it a point, which is what she says there. Not that this is a law or any kind of, whatever. It's her opinion. So she decides to check in on people who have more than 25 firearms. So I thought it was funny because, she's talking about pistols, but I have more than, 25 guns, and I have more than just pistols. But she's checking in to see what's going on. And so, when you think about the lunacy behind that, first off, you're checking in on what? That would be my first question. Now, keep in mind, some of you are going to say, oh, he folded, he didn't do this. But you got to be smarter than the person that's questioning you. Because if I went in there aggressively, if I went in there with fire, I guarantee you I would not have my RXM. Guarantee you I wouldn't have my gun license anymore. Because from what I'm hearing, that is the goal. That's the objective. The goal and the objective is to disarm as many people as possible. And so I had to be very tactful. I had to be very smart. I had to speak well. I had to deliver a message without being confrontational. Because if I'm confrontational, well, you know how that's going to end up. So I'll continue this.
You have 25, you have 29 now. You're getting another one. Where are we going with this?
So she says, where are we going with this? And, when she said that to me, it kind of threw me for a loop because I didn't know how to answer that. What do you mean, where are we going with this? I don't know. I'm not going to Disneyland. Right. So, again, here's my response. It's just so stupid. What could you elaborate on the question, Your Honor?
Well, okay. So a typical a gun owner around here, in my experience, having been looking at pistol permits for, I don't know what, 8 years now. People might buy 4, 5, 6 handguns. But it's unusual for people that own more than 30 or so. I mean, very unusual. And so
okay, so again, I'm sorry I'm pausing some of this, but there's a lot of talking points on this. So she says it's very unusual. And, I'm kind of wondering, what does that even mean? Why is that unusual for somebody to own 29 handguns and adding a 30th to their roster? I could understand if there was a propensity for violence in my life or if I have a history of shady things, but I don't. And I think when I kind of obviously reflect on this whole process, one of the things I was saying to myself, don't make faces either, because this is on camera, right? So I had to really put up a good front. I had to make sure that, again, the presentation was everything at this point, because she's coming at me. She's already in attack mode saying, well, where are we going with this? And it's highly strange or highly unusual that somebody in this area has 29 or 30 handguns. And I thought that's ridiculous in the first place, because I live in a pretty rural area still. There's hunters all over. Now, some of these people don't have, 50 fucking guns, but, at the same time, what's really wrong with owning that, right? I mean, you can't carry them all at once, although it'd be cool to do that. But at the same time, what is the point of that? So here we go.
I like to talk to these people and just make sure they understand, they can explain why do you need or want 30 handguns?
Well, I can easily explain that. I'd like to actually start off by introducing myself, because obviously we've never met. So I think knowing the person is important as well.
I agree.
So just so you're aware, I'm freshly 50 years old this year. I've been married 27 years. I have a son who is a freshman in college, who's a fantastic lacrosse player. So he is a scholar athlete. My daughter is he in Syracuse? Is he upstate? I wish he went that. He actually went down south, but so he did score a goal this year. So we're really excited about that. But we would like to bring him a little closer to home if we can, and hopefully we will. My daughter's graduating high school this year, and she's already been accepted into nursing school, which is great. I myself was a firefighter. Oh, that's what shit. I almost gave it to you. So, as you can tell, I'm doing my best to present myself in a more normal way because it's already been outed that somehow because I have 30 handguns, that there's something wrong with me. And so obviously, like I said, I could have gone in there with, fists going and sharpening my teeth and, you name it. I could have done that. There's no doubt about it. And I have every right to do that. But at the same time, you kind of have to have that fine balance of doing the right thing and doing the smart thing and also maintaining your composure, because I do believe this whole thing was a setup. I think the whole thing behind this, the whole premise behind this was to discredit me as a gun owner so that I didn't have an opportunity to have a new gun or have the guns that I had. And I think that's the biggest concern I had in this entire situation was the fact that, there was a lot of, situational parts to this where I could have said anything, but she went off, started attacking without even knowing who she was talking to. So I made it a point to explain who I am, 2 kids, my careers, and I'll be honest, I mean, I'm 50 years old. I spent, oh God, probably 32 years of my life in public service. So, I mean, I find it hard to believe that there would be any argument that there was something wrong with me because I had 30 firearms. I mean, that's the dumbest goddamn thing I've ever heard in my life. And a buddy of mine who had a similar situation, he was like, go in there and tell him what what's on your mind. And I'm like, all right, all right. And I had to kind of calm him down and explain to him, it's all about approach, man. Like, this is a part of the gun community that I think people are forgetting and not understanding, right? And I've said this for years. I've always said this. The people out there that want to portray gun owners as one group. And I'll be honest with you, there's a lot of stereotypes. I've been watching some videos lately, some live streams of people, and I'll be totally honest. Like, some of the things I'm watching are a little disturbing because it is a very stereotypical group of people who say some very stereotypical things. And, I find it in some cases to be slightly offensive, especially the racist shit. But, one of the things that I would say to you is that if we kind of go into it with this idea that we have to burn down the village instead of just burning down one single house, then we're going to lose. And so you have to understand how to play this game. And I think a lot of times you get guys out there who are on YouTube saying, no, fight, 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 and blah, 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 blah. But you have to realize people who are saying that are not in these situations, right? They're trying to speak for people like me, who, when we go out and look for help from people, everybody's fucking silent. And that's what pisses me off about this whole thing. I called, attorneys on retainer. I called them, explained to them the situation, and the answer I got was, I'm sorry, we can't help you. And so I understand that because it is New York State, we can't have insurance. But at the same time, here we go again. We have all these people who are peddling crap to all of you out there, and yet not one organization or group wanted to touch this with a 10-foot pole. And that's what I think annoys me the most. So again, it's about approaching. And so I don't even know where this video is at. So hopefully I may have to shut this off here. Hold on a second. Right now, currently, oh yeah, I don't want to give you that. Oh God. Or more items that I would wound up getting. So this is me explaining what I use these guns for. Purpose, as opposed to just, here we go. Do shoot steel challenges. In regards to the firearm purchases, while, some may consider it unusual, I am a competitive shooter, so I do shoot steel challenges. Every firearm has a purpose as opposed to just, one singular activity. For example, I have some pistols that are collector's items. Their value keeps going up every year. And those are more, in my personal opinion, are more items that I would wound up giving to my children at some point.
Yeah, I did notice, I did notice that you had a variety. Some people, I have had many people who collect, and they want every Glock or every.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of Glocks. So, all right. So let's talk about what I just said there. So again, I could have gone in there with fire, man, and believe me, I wanted to, but at the same time, it was more. And again, we can debate if we even have to do this, but if I didn't do this, they were not going to give me this gun. So there was no choice here. Okay. But again, it was the approach. I introduced who I was because it was an attack mode when I first got on here with the judge. And then the second part of it was me explaining to the judge just exactly who she's speaking with, right? Like, if you want to approach me in an aggressive manner, that's fine. I can escalate or I can de-escalate. And some of the things that you learn through the course of your life is that if you de-escalate a situation ahead of time, you're going to find that you're going to get the results that you want. And that's kind of, the whole point of leadership, right? Trying to get people to do what you want. So you do it. And so in this case, my goal was to make sure that she understood who she was speaking with. Now, just really quick, I'm going to go through some of these questions or comments and everything because I don't want to leave you guys out of this. So we have Patriot from Warsaw saying the gun culture is dying because people live in cities and are closed-minded, and that's the problem. Also, I mean, they just have a lot of political power. So the problem is you get those big population areas in cities, and they kind of screw everything else up for everyone else. Let's see. Rabbi is saying there certainly are some wing nuts in the gun community. Yes, there are. That's for sure. What was her reaction to my public service? I think once I had the ability to actually say something and introduce who she was speaking with, I think that immediately brought her down 7 notches because you're not going to be able to challenge someone who has a career helping and being a servant to people. And I think it's very difficult for people who are coming at you and saying, well, I want to know all this about you, but then they don't want to know anything about you, right? So you have to make them know who you are and make them know who they're speaking to and and what you stand for. And that's sort of how I approached it. I mean, I'll be honest with you, man. I literally practiced everything I was going to say because I wanted to make sure there was no way to discredit who I was as a person. Let's see, RG237G, lots of gun troopers promote. Of course they are. And I'm sure they have contracts to do it. I mean, really, like we can call them reviewers, they're influencers, and that's what they do. Rick Reed, thank you, sir, for the $9.99. This might be my first super chat in 3 years. So I appreciate that, man. Thank you. He is saying rights are slowly eroding. What a shame. In certain areas, they certainly are. I think there are going to be more challenges, obviously, because of the current administration. But I also think that you have this underground agenda of people who don't want people, to have their rights intact. Hello, G23. Hello. Armsman, hello, sir. It's good to see you. Hey, by the way, man, you have anything fancy that's in purple and black and gray for an RXM? I know what you're thinking. Purple? Yeah, man. So I just want to show this to you guys. This is kind of going to be the what I'm going to be looking for, like purples, because I got a surprise at the end of this, and I'll let you know what that is. And then, of course, when she said that comment, and this kind of goes to Pistol Pete, he says, Glock, that's all these people I've ever heard of. And that just goes to show like the ignorance, right? So she was looking at my license. She's seeing a big, diverse group of handguns. And that's why I explained to her, well, they're all different. They all have different purposes. It's just like a pair of shoes. Like if you're going to go climbing a mountain, you're going to not wear high heels, right? And if you're wearing high heels, shame on you. But, you're not going to be ice skating with flip-flops. It doesn't make any sense because everything has its own purpose. And my goal was to explain that to her. Like not every gun has a singular purpose. Not every gun is the same or has the same usability. So, there was definitely a strategy that I used that I thought made sense at the time. Rabbi's asking, what gives her the right to decide who gets what? And do you have a basis for a violation of your civil rights? I certainly could have asked that question, but I get a feeling it wouldn't have ended well for me. And because I'm not necessarily a legal scholar, I didn't want to push the buttons too much. So, you can call me a cuck if you want. I don't really care because I still got my guns and I still got a new gun and I still got my license and I'm going to still carry. Let's see. RG is saying, I think we should add your composure, but that's what I'm saying. And that's what I want to encourage people to understand, man. Don't go in there wanting to, like I said, like it's fine to fight, right? It's fine to fight back, but to do it in a way where they can't, reproach you and your character and who you are, because then it makes it harder for them. Imagine if I explain all this to this woman and this judge and she then denies my permit and denies the purchase of that firearm. What do you think was going to happen? I mean, that's an automatic lawsuit. So if you give them the ability to challenge you by coming at them aggressively, they're going to turn that around on a dime and they're going to say you're aggressive. And because you're aggressive, you're not going to own these firearms anymore. Or you approach it in an educational way or an educated way, and you tell them, look, this is who I am. This is what I stand for. This is who I've been my entire life. What can they reproach? Nothing. Let's see. So Rich is saying, when I get my 31st gun, we'll have to do the same thing. So I won't have to, apparently, because she put me on the list for a collector, which, doesn't change my license or my permit. It just says that they don't bother me anymore. At least I hope so. Who the hell knows at this point? Jack is saying, sad that you had to go through this to get your next gun. I'm at the end of my 30s and have had probably 100 handguns and have at least 40 to 50 right now. Never dreamed it was this bad in New York. Yeah, it is. And it's funny because I have more than 30. They're just not all pistols. So that's why I was kind of chuckling when she was saying that, but whatever. Let's see. I'm sorry. I'm falling behind on these chats, guys. My bad. Patriot is saying, my advice, I don't ask for help from others, especially if it's from the state government. Yeah, I mean, that's a good way to live because, all I can say is that, if you're relying on the government to help you out, you might as well just, I don't know, go out into the desert and wait for there to be, a tsunami, if that makes any sense. Patriot saying, you wear high heels in a mountain, you will get hammer toe or a bunion. Most certainly. Let's see. What would say if you didn't have the background of public service? And that's a good question too. Like, I think some people go in there and maybe don't have that. I mean, I don't know. I don't know. Like, what would you say? I mean, you could say that you're a collector. You could say that you look at these pistols as a lineage item, right? Where your kids will eventually inherit them. And, you can talk about your own upbringing, the fact that you appreciate the mechanics and the science behind firearms. I mean, there's all different types of things you can say. But there was one interesting comment. I'm not going to play it anymore, but there was one interesting comment where, as a matter of fact, let me just shut off my Bluetooth on this. Bear with me. Hopefully I don't shut off the wrong button. Okay. But there was one point at the end of the conversation where she was, kind of talking about the gun ownership and why so many guns. And she goes, you have to understand the reason why I do this is because there are some people who might have ideas. And one of the things she said, which I thought was just so asinine, was, I have to make sure that people aren't trying to arm a militia. And so I said to myself, again, what, we're not allowed to have militias? I could swear that we're allowed to have militias, but that was the comment that was made. So Arms is saying, tell her to expedite your purchases, eliminating the waiting period. Yeah, good luck with that. Patriots saying, the moment you give into a reaction they want on your end, you lose. You make them give a reaction, they lose. It's exactly true, man. And that was the point. Like I said, there's a fishing expedition going on. They're trying to get people in there who are aggressive, and then they can say, oh, excuse me, you were aggressive, and now we can deny you having this gun. I'm not that stupid. Let's see. Well, we have good runtime for asteroids. Yeah, I know, right? I think that one's going to hit the moon. Rabbi is saying, I might have not said anything at all. Let her find me in contempt and violate another civil right. And that's the thing too. Like, it wasn't even a court. It wasn't even a court procedure because I was never under oath. So, again, this had nothing to do with the law or the courts. This was a personal agenda. And that's the problem with the entire thing. You're dictating as a judicial officer of the court on what you think is right and wrong. And last time I checked, I thought their job was to be unbiased or to basically judge the adequacy of a law. In this case, there was no law ever violated. That's a good one too, right? Their personal defense. What if the other 20 break down? Never know. Things happen, right? Let's see. New York goes soft on crime and then pull this crap. It's like I said, you cannot explain it. No rational person in their right mind could explain this entire process. I mean, it was just plain old stupid. By the way, state government of New York probably doesn't even know that the state has a duty to train its citizens well regulated. They're dealing the opposite of that. You're absolutely correct. It's the dumbness, if that's even a word, stupidity, I guess, behind it is crazy. Who besides her was present? There was a court clerk and another female. I don't know who it was, but probably I think maybe a stenographer or something like that. That's who was there, and like I said, I can record it, and I did. And I actually, the reason why I recorded it wasn't necessarily just for this, even though I knew this was going to, be an entertaining chat. The reason, let me just raise this mic because I'm starting to slouch over too much. I'm maybe a hunchback at the end of this. But the reason why I recorded it was to protect myself. I wanted to make sure that if, my words were misconstrued in any way, I would have evidence to be able to say, well, time out. That's not what was said. And that's not the content of what I said. So it was important for me to do that. And in New York State, you only need one party consent. And in this case, I'm the one party. All right, let's see. I'm always told from my gun store people, there are so many more gun owners in New York State that if they all would stand up together, voice out for gun rights. And RG, I noticed you're from New York. Where in New York? I'd like to know. But you're right. The problem is that the major population centers in New York State are New York City, Buffalo, Rochester. So unfortunately, population in the northern tier of New York State is not much. Let's see. Peter is saying, as a Polish American, I'm afraid for us. I don't think it would ever get to that point. I just don't believe that people would, back down like this. Some people I'm sure in the military and police would do anything their masters bid, but I don't think all of them would. There's no way. Otsego County. Is that in the Great Lake region? Not exactly sure. I'm more down towards the New York City area, Hudson Valley. Did I have to ask for permission to record? No. New York State law, you don't have to ask for permission. You just need one party consent, and it doesn't dictate who that party is. So it could be the recorder or the recordee. In this case, since I'm the recorder, I gave myself consent to record the conversation. So thus not violating any laws. So, that's kind of why I did it. But so I mean, I guess in the long run, the good thing, two good things, right? I was able to, have some content to make this live stream. So yay for me. The other good thing was that I was able to, maintain my composure enough to be able to get my handguns. So that was cool. Otsego County is central New York, center bullseye. Okay. Got it. Rabbi saying, I figured it out. She wanted to gauge your melanin levels, Court Karen. Yeah. I guess, they see what my last name is and like, why does this really ethnic named guy have so many guns? Let's see. Penn's Gator, Florida, baby. I lived in Florida many years, many years. And I moved back here. Yep. Go ahead. Skewer me. That's fine. But sometimes you got to do what you got to do for family. And that's what I did. So at some point I'll get out of here. 8 more years, actually. I'm down to 8. I keep saying, I've said it every year since I've had this stupid channel. So it's been like, every year it gets 1 year less. So I'm down to 8 and then I'm gone. So I just hope that I'm healthy enough to enjoy it, and I live long enough to see it. But that's it. So if you guys have any more questions, feel free to ask. But let's go to the next round. Oh, Patriot is saying, 1776, by the way, but that's okay. I follow a fellow gun tuber in New York. His name is Mud and Munitions. Don't know him. Interesting. Yes, Rabbi. Absolutely. Just like Al Pacino, right? I try to get out, and every time I do, they pull me right back in. If you haven't seen The Godfather, you should watch that. Good movie. 1 and 2. 3, not so much. All right. So let's talk about the Ruger, right? All right, so let's go. Every place has its good and bads, to make the best of it. I don't define them. Okay. All right, so let's talk about the Ruger. All right, so the RXM, quite an interesting handgun for sure. So I am going to present. Hopefully, I always screw this up, so I swear I'm sorry, guys, if I screw this up. So let's see. Share screen. We're going to go to. Let's share a window. We're going to share this window right here. Share that. All right, there we go. All right. So we're going to the Ruger website, right? And Rabbi right away says Ruger Glock. And he would be right. This Ruger Glock is quite interesting. I mean, we could call it a rock or Gluger or whatever you want to call it. But I'm going to say a couple of things about this gun. So, first off, let's kind of scroll down. So, let's take a look at it. And yeah, I can show it because it's not on my channel. But this is the RXM. If you haven't seen it, I'm sure you all have seen it. It is probably, well, I have to say, it is actually a very nice gun. And, the armsman brings up an interesting part of this where he says, I'm liking the RXM and waiting on that Icarus grip module, which thank you for stealing my my thunder, man. So, in a couple of weeks, right after Easter Sunday, I'm going to have another live stream with my friends from Icarus Precision. And we're going to be talking just about that. We're going to be talking about their actual RXM lower that they're making in a Glock 19 and a Glock 45 or 19X size. So I am hoping to have my hands on one of them pretty soon. At least I hope so. And I look forward to it because obviously I've seen it on a couple of channels and the thing looks badass. So that brings me to my next point, right? So yes, Patriot, this is a Glock copy. It is based off of Gen 3 and 4 parts. You know, I think there's something wrong with that? I mean, no, there's plenty of clones out there. I mean, we know them, right? But it just seems like every single clone that keeps coming out, they just get better and better, and they get a little bit more, I think, nuance in regards to having a better track record than a Glock, or at least better options than a Glock. Now, one of the things I'm going to say about this is the thing that attracted me to this gun. First off, because you guys know I'm cheap. If you watch this channel, you know I'm cheap as hell. This gun right now you can find under 400, right? With shipping probably amounts to $400 plus tax. But what we're looking at right now is you're looking at a gun that you're going to have pretty good reliability. A, because it's all Glock internal components. B, Ruger has a pretty good track record, I would say. You got Magpul that makes some pretty good polymer stuff. And, at the end of the day, you have kind of a complete package. Now, the thing is optic capable. The thing also comes with, I won't necessarily say co-witnessing sights because as I was, kind of lining everything up today with it, I noticed that the sights, you don't get full co-witness. You maybe get a lower third, but that's maybe, that's a big maybe. But it's better than what would have come with a regular Glock. So you can still make it out. It's just not, 100% co-witnessing there. And then, of course, when you look at the serrations on the slide, it's really nicely done. I mean, obviously, when I do the tabletop of this gun, you guys will see it up in close and personal, and we'll kind of go through some of the aesthetics of it. But the thing that got me is this right here, and that is their fire control insert. And I found that to be very, very intriguing, right? Because now you have something that you can do anything you want with it. And you know what Magpul is going to do. They're going to continually make new lowers for this thing. From what I'm seeing, they're making a whole ton of different colors. They're making white, purple, pink, blue, obviously the gray. They're doing OD green, FDE, and then standard black, right? So, I mean, what I have to say is like right then and there, ultimate customization, right? You take your module out, or excuse me, your fire control insert, pop it into a different module, and now you have a different colored gun. I probably could tell you they're going to be coming out with a full-size grip. And then that full-size grip, now you're going to have basically a 19X/45. So Rich is saying, is the grip size about the same as Glock 19? It is. It's exactly the same size. And that's all it is. It really is like a Gen 3 Glock with a hell of a lot nicer stippling, nicer trigger, nicer ergonomics, and blah, 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 right? Are the RXM parts interchangeable between a Glock? Some of them are. So like what I'm finding is that what I've read, this is what I've read, so I don't know yet. But apparently if you're going to change out your trigger, which I intend on doing potentially, you have to change it out with a Glock Gen 3 or 4 trigger bar. Anything bigger than that or anything different, I don't even think a Gen 5 will work for it. So it has to be a Gen 3 or 4. So your trigger bar, your trigger shoe, Gen 3 takedown, or I should say Gen 3 takedown here, Gen 3, what is it? Slide release, slide lock. So it's all interchangeable with old Glock parts. And the best part of it is half the stuff is cheap. As a matter of fact, what the hell did I do with it? Just to give you guys an idea, this right here is a Gen 3 guide rod. This works perfectly. And this right here is a Gen 3 barrel from, I think it's a Gen 3. It might be a Gen 4 barrel, but this is from Zaviri Precision. So eventually, when I shoot the gun, I'm going to probably pop this barrel in it. It's got a recessed crown on it. Just looks a lot cooler. And I like it. It's pretty. It's pretty. So, that just goes to show you that it has all these things going for it. And I like that, man. I do. I dig it. And the fact that, obviously, there was some foreknowledge in regards to the Icarus lower that I had. So I knew that they would be working on it, and that's why I picked it up, because hell, man, if I can get an aluminum lower for this thing, how do you beat it? How do you freaking beat it? So I just think it's a really nice, well-balanced firearm. Let's see. I think Rabbi's making some nasty comments about me. Man, you're so mean to me. I hate you. I don't hate you. I like you. You're a friend. So let's see. Still needs a place for the EPS. Yep, that's true. But you can mount it directly to the slide with a 507C. I believe a 507K as well. Or if you have the big money, you go get yourself something cooler. You know what I mean? And interestingly, the mounting system is really, really interesting because when you take off the plate, there are these two little, they call them locator pins, and they go like in here and in here. And then the front portion of your optic sits on that. And then you screw the rest of your optic in. So it gives it kind of like the support you need so you don't shear off the screws. So it's kind of nice. It's pretty cool. It's pretty cool. Let's see. Rabbi saying I need that smaller grip. They fit his doll-like hands. Yes, they are. They're like porcelain. No, not true. But whatever. Let's see. What I will say, the one thing I hate about this gun is the magazines, man. The friggin' those friggin' P mags, they suck. They just absolutely suck. First off, and if you look at it carefully, I'll go down here. Look at the size of the base plate. It's ridiculous. There's like two pieces here. There's the extension and then the actual what should be the plate. And I don't know why they did that, right? The gun holds 15 rounds, so it's 15 plus one. And this thing sticks out so much that it's like, why would you do that? That's the only thing right now that I can say about this gun I can't stand. But it's a good thing I already have Glock 19 mags. All right, let's see what you guys are saying. Let's see. We're losing the audience. Uh-oh. I don't know what I'm going to do. If Glock would do real updates and improvements, then you wouldn't need clones. And you're absolutely right. And I think that's why people are kind of driving away from it. And, there are some people who are going to say, well, they're stupid for doing that. Glock still makes the best guns. Glock is highly reliable. But, what makes them reliable are all the parts that these gun companies are using to make their clones. And then they're shaping the polymer into a much more user-friendly format. Like, for example, the MR920 is really nice ergonomic gun. The bull armories are nice. Although I sold mine because, I don't know. I guess I'm falling out with them. But I did sell mine, and then I went out and get the Ruger, made in America, baby. And, I have to say it's much more ergonomic than a Glock. It's not the most ergonomic, but it's better, much better. Let's see. The Armsman is saying, funny thing is the Icarus lower is more than the RXM itself. Yep, and that's true. But, sometimes you got to pay that price for getting some nice stuff. I mean, like I said, there were people out there paying, $2,000 or $3,000 for, what is that, Jacob Grave handgun. That seems to be reviewed by people who tell you to go and buy it, even though they don't buy it themselves. But one of the things I would say to you is that, this is, in my opinion, a very good sale for me. I like the gun. Even if Icarus wasn't making lower, I still think if you're looking for a striker-fired polymer handgun and you want something kind of in the lineage of a Glock, this is a no-brainer. I mean, Glocks right now are still, charted, a little bit over 400, like $450, $500, depending on what you're buying. But I think at the same time, I just don't see it, man. I don't understand why anybody would buy a Glock anymore. I just don't. Let's see. They may have won the military contract and saved us from SIG if Glock had an FCU. And I agree with that. Like if Ruger and Magpul can do it, how come Glock couldn't do it? That's the bigger question. And then Rabbi saying, are they curious to see if they're better shooters than factory Glocks? Well, I think if you break down the gun for what it is, I mean, it is a Glock, right? But you have better ergonomics. The trigger is definitely better. So I think that's going to help on the accuracy of the firearm. The barrel, interestingly enough, is a little bit heavier than a Glock barrel, and it feels a little bit thicker than a Glock barrel. Uh, excuse me. I mean, I could be off on that, but it definitely felt that way to me. So, we'll see. Like I said, I'll do the tabletop, then I'll do a follow up shooting video, and then you guys can decide if it's worth your money. Let's see. I've got two Mechgar HD mags to use with the RXM. I'm disappointed with them. I guess the design is specifically for the Staccato HD. Oof. Yeah, the Glocado. G23, every firearm has pros and cons, and it's mainly marketing that makes the populace want after current firearms. You're absolutely right, sir. Marketing is the winner. Mike is saying he picked up the P365 fuse today. Excited to get to the range. Watching your video made me want one. I'm telling you, man, that fuse, which is behind me in my safe, I carry that gun probably 95% of the time. It really does. It fits every criteria for me. I mean, obviously, I'm spoiled because I do have the Icarus Precision lower. And when I shot it with that, it's a no brainer. It's a no brainer. It's probably the best single, I won't say single stack, but it's the best Slim Series firearm that I own, period. Period. It's just a great gun. Great friggin' gun. Rabbi is saying Such will snort a line and jabber on about how it's the best thing ever. Of course, because Such likes everything. What more can we say? We all know it, right? Polymer formulation compound are way superior quality. So I'm wondering if that's in reference to the Magpul stuff they're using. And I have to say, there's very little flex in the polymer. Very little flex. RG is saying you're not a Glock guy, you're CZ guys. So I mean, I'm not a Glock. Look, I was a Glock guy one time when I first started shooting. I had Glock 17s, I had a 45, 19X, 19s, I had a 26, I had a 43X, I had a 48, I have a 48 now. I would be looking forward to having these guys, Ruger and Magpul, drop a 43, 48 style handgun. That would be something. I mean, if they did that with the fire control insert, I don't want to say unit because that's SIG's dime, but if they had an FCI for like a 48 model, that thing would be badass. Totally badass. Let's see. Such paid for advertising. Yeah, well, like I said, there's always that difference between reviewers and the influencers you see, and you can always tell the influencers because, when there's a lot of new stuff out, you see videos from them like every other day, every third day, whatever it is. But then all of a sudden, when there's nothing out, you don't see any videos. So you have to realize that what is the intent there, like, they do it. And like I said, there's nothing wrong with it. Do it for money. If that's what you want to do, great, man. If I could make money off this, I'd be doing it too. But, maybe some of these guys should do live streams, talk a little bit more about the firearms they have or what their experiences are. I mean, I don't think there'd be anything wrong with that. I think a lot of people would be into it quite a bit, actually. Yeah, Armsman keeps telling me I need a Shadow 2 compact. I was close, man, to pulling the trigger, but I had to pay for some things recently. So unfortunately, that money's now gone, which always seems to be the problem, man. Every single time I get this close, something happens. That's my luck. My Shadow 2 is now my nightstand gun. That's a question I want to ask you guys. What are all of your nightstand guns? And then RG is telling you to try an APX. And interestingly enough, I've had the APXs. I did like the first generation APX. The second generation was nice too. I like the different serrations and the options it had. But just like every other time when you get a Beretta, there's not a lot of aftermarket anything. You can't do anything with it. So if you wanted to mount an optic, good luck trying to find anything that can give you a co-witness. So I think that was always the problem, and I think that I like the APX. My second gen APX, the A1, that one had some slide issues because the coating on it was actually peeling off. And so I wound up getting rid of that. And then Armsman saying, forget the bills. Who needs a roof when you can get pew-pews? Yeah, I wish I could do that. I did not have a prolapse, Rabbi. Stop talking about your colon. and your sphincter, please. Pistol Pete, out of the holster and into the nightstand. That's a good system, right? Use it every day. And then he's saying Beretta doesn't need aftermarket, dude. Disagree slightly. I can tell you that, for example, right, we can always use a PX4 Storm as a good example of that, right? And nice gun, but aftermarket Langdon, right? It's a badass gun, totally different gun. My 92X Compact, my 92X Centurion, very nice gun, but I added a couple of aftermarket parts to it. And really, when I say aftermarket, I mean, they were Beretta parts, but they were just better parts than what came with the gun. So it made a huge improvement, at least in my opinion. So yeah, I do think Beretta needs some aftermarket stuff. I don't think the APX trigger is that great. I don't think it's that smooth. A new trigger bar would be nice, but that's not an option. So that's just my my impressions. Mike is saying his Shadow Systems XR920 is his nightstand friend. All right. What else you guys carrying in that nightstand? Anybody carrying a big gun, flamethrower, anything, rocket launcher? So I actually have the cheapest gun that I own is my nightstand gun. Yep. The cheapest gun I own, which is the T-Shiz PX9. Fantastic gun, by the way. I still have had no issues with it, no rusting issues, no shooting issues with it. Another sub $400 dollar gun that just, in my opinion, runs and runs and runs. Arms is saying PDP 5-inch stays within arm's reach. That's a good choice. Very nice choice. Great trigger on that bad boy. Right. So he didn't do much. He polished it and dropped it in the Beretta performance trigger from Beretta. So yeah, and you're right on that. I mean, do I consider any of that stuff aftermarket? A little bit. I do. So because aftermarket means it didn't come from factory like that, at least in my opinion, right? So if you're throwing something in there from Beretta, and if you're doing something to improve it, and like I said, I'm not saying anything's wrong with the guns. The guns are fantastic. I love the Berettas that I have. I just was disappointed more, I think, in the slide peeling, the way it was peeling. Other than that, it was a great gun, but not a big seller. It just seems like, and that's weird. I don't know why the APX never seems to be a big seller. Armsman, I acquired a PX9 tactical thanks to you. Oh, no problem. Thank you, sir. Glock 23. G23 is asking you a question there, Armsman. There you go. Hopefully you can make some business. Space looking gun. Yeah. And that's the thing too, like Gerson's coming out with some cool stuff. I mean, there's a lot of cool stuff out there. I think things are getting slower and slower. I just think that there's a kind of a lull right now. I mean, because think about how many 2011s can you make? How many 2011s can come out and people still buy them? And I think people who are buying them are realizing, holy shit, this gun just cost me $2,000. Maybe I need to slow down, or I got to save to get something else. So, that's just how it is sometimes. So the other thing I'm going to talk about a little bit really quick is, some other company that I work with a lot, and this is Core Essential. Pretty cool belts. Now they have, chocolate chip, which is pretty sweet. This is also their, I forget what this one was called. I think it's called their, I want to say it's the frog belt. I can't remember what it's called, but both these came into the channel. Do a review on it at some point, but just like usual, the quality on these belts are just fantastic. I mean, if you guys have been looking for a good gun belt, I would definitely tell you go get Core Essentials. No, they're not sponsoring this. No, they don't sponsor me. I've just been using these for years. I've yet to get a belt that has sucked from them. Now they have new slim buckles where instead of the big bulky steel buckle, it's a lot smaller. So it just makes it a little bit easier and more manageable. But totally recommend them. I love these belts. Core Essentials, use them. They're great belts. You can see like this is what it is. This is how it came. You cut them down to the size that you need. Attach your buckle, and you're good to go. I mean, it's just fantastic. Just Fantastic. Fantastic stuff. Rabbi, that is a big giant no. No. And I think the armsman said it the best. No, that's not the sound of hotness at all. Rabbi's doing high quality leather. I hope it is at least blessed by the rabbi. I hope it's kosher leather. Yeah. So again, if you're into belts, try them out. You won't be disappointed. I've heard some people have had horror stories with these belts, but I think for the most part, the majority of people who get these belts never have any issues with them. And I've never had an issue. And I have a ton of them. I have leather belts. I have the brushed leather. I've got cowboy buckles. I got regular buckles, fat buckles, skinny buckles. I got everything. I got every single thing they have. And never once have I been disappointed. So I'll be showing these off a little bit. And then you guys can determine if you want to pick them up. Again, like I said, you buy one, you probably buy two. And then eventually you'll realize, geez, these belts never break down. And they just don't. They're just that good. Just really good. Let's see. Oh, I finally got Rabbi to laugh. Yep, it is a stiff belt. I mean, obviously, it's just a small piece of it. So obviously, as you get longer, you'll see that it'll start to bend much more. But it is a very stiff belt, but at the same time, it is flexible. It's weird. It's like a complete oxymoron, right? It's a stiff, flexible belt. G23 is saying he had the track brake. Wow, that's interesting. I've never had that happen. Not once. Never. As a matter of fact, I have the original belt that I bought, Jesus, probably like 9 years ago, and it's still running pretty strong. I mean, I would say now it seems like the leather's given a little bit, and you can actually see the outline of the track on it. So that kind of sucks. But it's kind of hard to get rid of that belt because I just love it. I've had it with me for a long time, so it's been a good belt. Can't complain. Can't complain about that belt at all. All right, so we are coming up to 3 minutes left in the chat. If you have questions, ask, comments to make, we will do our best, or I will do my best to answer anything I can. Let's see. EA might get a hold of them and see if they will let you borrow one. No, probably not. Or he's probably talking to Armsman. Yeah, Armsman, you should try to do that. You should try to contact these gun companies and see if they can lend you one. And then that way you can make holsters for them. That'd be a good idea. That'd be a great idea. RG is saying he agrees with Rabbi and the leather belt. Yep. And that's cool. They make some great leather. I've had some really good leather belts. Mike is saying leather core belts are more flexible, and they are. This is not really this is obviously not leather, but the leather ones do have a little more flex in them. Rabbi saying, glad it went well for me. Too bad you had to go through all of this, but you handled it with poise, grace, and intelligence. At least that's what I like to lie to myself and say, so you're right on that. Thanks, buddy. Yeah, I think at the end of the day, if there's a lesson to be learned in any of this, which there probably isn't, I think the lesson to be learned is the fact that, I think at some point it'd be nice to see people who would support others who are not necessarily in the most friendly of places when it comes to guns, right? I think when I initially got this letter, I was a little nervous because I'm like, shit, did I do something? What's going to happen here? But then as you start doing a little bit more homework, you realize that this to me was nothing more than an attempt to restrict based on how the person was going to react. So if anybody watches this and you're in New York or you run into the same issue and you're not in New York, the only real advice I can give you is the advice that I would give myself or anybody else I knew. And that is to just maintain your composure, right? Try to be calm about it because I was pissed and I still am kind of pissed about it. And after the meeting was over, I was still pissed. But at the same time, I also knew that if you're going to approach this, you got to approach in a way that disarms them. And I think that's the key, right? Because I think their goal is to disarm you, disarm me, disarm all of us. But I think if you have enough savviness, and most of us do, I wouldn't think any of you don't, I think you can disarm them right off the bat, and then they don't even know what to do. And I think that's the most important thing because I think what they're looking for is they're looking for a conflict, and they want that the conflict to occur so that they can then do what they really want to do, and that is to disarm you, and that is to take away your constitutionally guaranteed rights. And and most people wouldn't have the money or the ability to fight. And so the way I look at it is, if it happens to you, don't you know don't go crazy, right? Go in there with some poise, go in there with the understanding that you're going to explain to these people who you are. You don't have to be a public servant. You don't have to give the better use of your years to the public and serve the public and a quote unquote save lives or whatever you want to say about it. You shouldn't have to do that to be able to have your constitutional rights. So did I use that in this case because I had that in my back pocket? Sure. Yes, because it benefited me. And I'm going to put that out there to make sure they knew. But it doesn't mean you have to, right? All you have to do is explain to them you're not a threat. And I think with that conversation, you disarm them immediately. And then they don't have any other thing to jump onto. They may try to say other things to you that are going to be offensive or piss you off. But then it's up to you to decide what you want to do with that, and at the end of the day, it's going to be on you. I want to keep my gun rights. And I know that if I did it the wrong way, I probably wouldn't be here today talking about the RXM. But, who the hell knows? So one last peruse through the comments. Armsman is saying he had 2 companies to reach out. One offer was insulting. I see why some purchases include crappy holsters. That's interesting. Let's see. Gun owners should stand together. I agree. Yeah, and then Rabbi saying, yeah, everyone says that, but when you step forward, you look next to you and realize you're alone. And that is probably the most true statement you've ever made, sir. And every time I go through something like this, and I reach out to these organizations that supposedly help gun owners, there's always crickets, man. Always. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous, right? What is it? Because I can't pay? Is it because I can't get insurance? Well, whatever happened about standing on principle? I mean, does anybody do that anymore? Probably not. All right. That's great, Rabbi. All right, everybody. So I appreciate everybody watching. I go to F in Albany and sign petitions and make calls. That's what you can do. But guess what? You can make all the calls you want and sign petitions all you want. Nobody's reading them and nobody's taking those calls. Not at least here. It's just not happening. So unfortunately, it's up to the individual to do what they need to do for themselves. And that's kind of the scary part of it all. But like I said, guys, I hope you got something out of the chat tonight. Again, Monday, after Easter Sunday, we'll be doing another live chat here with the crew from Icarus. I think it's going to be an interesting talk. I'm already starting to formulate some questions, so I'm a little more prepared, a little more professional, and really get down the nitty gritty. I hope in the meantime, maybe I'll get the lowered to me before then, which would be friggin' amazing, and then I can shoot it and then report back to all of you what my thoughts are. And I'm pretty sure it'll be positive. But I'm glad everybody came out who did. And again, share the video, man. Share it, subscribe, give us a thumbs up. I mean, anything you guys can do. My content obviously has come down quite a bit in regards to the amount. But at the same time, I will continue to do these things. If you guys want to watch the live chats and interact, that's totally cool. So look forward to doing the Ruger videos and some other things coming down the pipeline. So appreciate everybody. Thank you so much for joining me. GB Guns. Wait, hold on. Ruger doesn't appreciate people pronouncing the name of that gun RXM. What should I pronounce it as? And I appreciate you showing up, but you are late, sir. What do they want me to call it? The Roxum? Read Wrexham as a word. So is it Wrexham? I'm waiting for a response. Wrexham. Pistol Pete says it's rectum. Oh, it's a joke. Oh, you bastard. You got me. Wrexham. I think the rectum part was probably the best one of the night. Well, now that GB Guns is here, if you guys want to hang out a little longer, let's hang out a little bit longer. They don't like Wrexham because it sounds like a body part. Yes, sir. I believe it does. That is pretty funny. It's pretty freaking funny. So I know GB Guns. Yeah, I know you've actually shot this gun. So I'd be interested in your thoughts on that. So no more Wrexham. All right, don't call it Wrexham because that could lead to other awkward conversations. And I think GB Guns actually had the comment of the night, Rabbi. He just blew you out of the water. Totally blew you out of the water. Woo. All right, so we're going to be signing out here. GB Guns, listen, man, if you ever want to do a live chat with me, just hit me up, buddy. I don't think we've ever spoken to each other, but it'd be nice to have some people here. People who are a little bit more influential in the gun community than myself. But whatever, it's cool. Rabbi wants me to fitty me or fight me. Yeah, you should learn how to spell, bud. All right, everybody. So we're all checking out right now. Appreciate everybody being here tonight. Go back, check out the rewind. And like I said, hit me up. I'm on Instagram. I'm also on YouTube. So I don't mind working with people. If people want to work with me, just give me a shout. All right, everybody. Have a good night. Stay safe. And as always, everyone, freedom is never free.